Good evening, everyone. It's 7 o'clock. We're going to call the meeting to order and recite the pledge.
Sure.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with
Liberty and justice for all. No, Adrian.
We were commenting, we were like, oh, is she coming? I think she's coming. Are there any changes to the agenda? Anyone have anything to add? Okay. I need a minute.
Maybe.
I evidently need a minute. I need a motion to approve the minutes from January 15th, please.
Move we approve the minutes from January 15th, subject to correction.
Thank you, George. Is there a second? Thank you, Liz. Are there any corrections? Hearing none. All those in favor of approving the minutes from January 15th, subject to any corrections that need to be made, please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Any abstentions?
Abstain.
Me
Thank
too.
you. Okay. Got it, Ann? Okay. Any public input or announcements? Hearing none, we will move right on to our communication coordinators report. Hi, Sean.
So, I do have a lot to report. I was worried I wouldn't, but then once I started putting everything together, I was like, no, all right, there's a lot going on. I didn't use numbers so much as I did last time because I figured everybody would want to be awake for the rest of the board meeting. So the last time that I updated everyone was the September board meeting. So since then, I've claimed the locations on Google. So when you do the Google Maps and things like that, we have control over the images that come up and all of that. I had to contact Google. They had to mail postcards that we had to register to show that we were who we were saying we were. A LinkedIn account was also created, so that I haven't done anything with it besides claiming it and just putting some of our logos and things like that up on it, but we can put stories and stuff like that up as they come up that make sense. So on social media, last time I gave a update based on 12 months, and it's been, so 5 months since that last update. Yeah. So 5 months since that last update, but we are at or above the halfway mark of number of posts from halfway through last year. What's more exciting than that, though, is the engagement that we're getting with the community. So there's a lot more likes. There are comments, and let's see, I think on the Facebook side, so interacting with comments, I've been trying to answer people when somebody actually has a legitimate question. We had some questions when we were talking about the electric bus, and I was giving facts and informative, and then just left it at that when one or two people were, kind of going off to one side or another, that it wasn't something that was like a factual, just kind of feelings. There's been some other questions. There was one recently on some of the budget issues, and I was able to track down that information with Stan and Dave, getting that information, getting that stuff posted. I think notably, Brogan Giffen deserves some credit for the uptick in Mill River likes. So 2 different cross-country posts from him. There was about 500 likes between those two out of probably about 4,500 on the high school site. So he was pulling a lot of weight on that. Let's see. Front Porch Forum we've been using quite a bit. Promoting all different events, fundraisers, things like that come up. I've also been turning to the calendars for the Rutland Herald, Sam's Good News, and the Vermont News Guide to promote events when appropriate. Twitter, I've backed off of a little bit just because the effort on it hasn't been paying off. There's not a lot of likes going on, not a lot of interaction. Tammy ends up liking a lot of and Liz, the what is the Democrat yes, that comes up a bit on the legs, but generally,
So we're
it's
doing
kind
our
of,
part. We're
it's kind of
trying.
relevant. Right. So I think the two of you, but for the most part, it's not a lot going on. So as far as the payoff, like Facebook seems to be where it's at. And on Instagram, it does continue to be, I mean, students really like stuff that's going up. I actually was going around beginning of the meeting and just taking a lot of photos of all the art, so that'll start going up on Instagram. Let's see. Oh, so one of the brand new things that we just rolled out this week for Facebook, there is musicians of note. So the seniors of this year, it's self-elected, so I put together a questionnaire, and they answer the questionnaire. Kristen takes a picture of them, and then that information all goes up about them. So, like their favorite performance, their favorite memory for the music program, and it'll be one a week, and as many of them as that fill it out. So I think there's 5 or 6 of them, and I think there's 19 total possible. And then I also spoke to Kim about doing that for the athletes, and I put together a questionnaire for them, and she shared that with them. So hopefully, maybe by next week or the week after, we'll start putting the senior athletes up too. Let's see. Jess Perkins, art teacher, I just reached out to the other day, and it sounds like we're going to be doing the Sparkle Barn again this year for the district art show. That was pretty cool. I think the kids really enjoyed it because it was kind of like like an official art showing. So I think they were really excited about it. So as soon as I get the definite on that, I'll promote the heck out of that. So Rutland Herald update. So Jim Sabatasso is now covering education. I put him in touch with Jody the other day for the Farm to School Grant Award, and I'm hoping to touch base with them maybe next week for some other story ideas that we have that I'm hoping we can get covered there. The district website and the high school site I've been focusing on right now. I think the last time I met with everyone, I was hoping to have the sites updated, but this is one of those cases where ignorance is bliss, and I met with the communication group for all the different schools. I meet with them now and then. And the last meeting we had was on ADA compliance, and as I dug into that, then I realized that we needed to update the site in a different way. So I've been working on that. So it's all, there's things about contrast and things like that. So if somebody has an issue, like a visual issue or colorblind or something like that, there's some things I have to change to the site there. There's some things I have to change to let sight readers be able to read it. So if somebody is visually impaired. So I'm working through that. It's been a little bit of a learning experience, but hoping to finish that up soon for the district and the high school site, and then I'll move on to the elementary schools after that. And then to that end, for other updates, I'm going to be creating some general emails that are for different departments from the district side. So, for example, Stan and Nicole might have an email, like a budget@millriverschools.org, and that'll that would direct to their sites, but that way it's not putting their personal email up there. So if like a web crawler pulls the email, they're not going to get spammed, and if there ends up being a problem with that, we could just remove that email from them so that they're not kind of jeopardizing their official Mill River address. And then likewise, I met with Maria last week, the week before, I don't know, recently, and we were discussing something similar for, we could potentially do that for the different committees for the board if you'd like. So have some kind of, just that particular committee's title, and then the at Mill River, and then that can get directed to either that committee's chair or everybody on the committee. I mean, you guys can figure that out, and we can make it happen. So, and then and there'll be a brief description of what each committee does too, so that if somebody did have a question, that they would know which committee to reach reach out to with that question. So, yeah, that's it in a nutshell, but is there any questions that I can answer?
That's my own ignorance. Did we put the link to the annual report for the district on Facebook or any of those, or will we be doing that in case someone didn't get that lovely postcard that Ann sent out and is looking for it?
It'll be on the district site, and I can definitely put it on the Facebook.
I would just say maybe so people know where to go in case they don't know.
Yep.
It might be.
Yeah, absolutely. And actually also the board meeting, I put that on all the Facebook pages and Twitter as well too, like just directing
Yeah.
people so they know where to come in. So.
Yeah, that I've seen. I just didn't know. I
Yep.
haven't.
Yeah, I
been
can do
paying.
that for that stuff too. So,
Thank you.
all right. Thank you. All right.
Any
Thank
other
you.
questions?
Thank you.
Great, thank you. Okay, we'll move on to our principal updates. So, Maureen, we'll start with you since you're in the corner. And now I know where you are.
So, we completed our SBAC learning analysis stage currently. Putting the data together and using it to inform our instruction. The student council is currently collecting toiletries and socks and hats and gloves and mittens for homeless vets. That's their project for this semester. And we were expecting a sixth grader to come because they had written a letter to the board explaining this project and asking for donations. But the flu has hit our sixth graders and you're gonna have to wait 2 weeks. So in anticipation, it's worth the wait. And finally, our winter sports program is in full swing. We have excellent instructors. The kids are really successful. They're all up on the lifts already, and they're beaming. They're filled with pride, and it's really, I would say, quite successful, the program, as far as creating a healthy lifestyle and building self-esteem in our children. So that's what I have for January.
Great, thank you. Thank you. Helen, I know you're back there.
That's
Okay.
Thanks to Fred. Well, our winter sports program also began this last Monday. We're trying something different this year. We're doing it in 3 full days, so the kids have both a lesson and free skiing or snowboarding or skating the rest of the time, and they come back very tired. But we have 57 skaters and 73 skiers and snowboarders. From all reports, everybody's having a grand time up there. I was interested to hear that report about collecting mittens and hats, because our second grade teacher is also doing a project with her kiddos around. The big theme is a house a home or a home a house, and they're doing a lot of interesting learning around different homes around the world, as well as people who don't have a home. So they're collecting hats and mittens and gloves to give to children who are in homeless shelters who need those kinds of equipment. I like seeing that they are making a connection to not just learning about the world, but also a connection to those who do not have things that they typically have, and showing that great empathy for others who are lacking. The January assessments are pretty much done, and working on analyzing that and thinking about instruction and making improvements. PTO had another wonderful, successful event with contra dance, and I guess they not only auctioned off pies this year, but a lot of other sweets. And I think the kids really enjoyed both, just being able to eat sweets and contra dance. And basketball and cheering are in full swing. Kids are learning both activities and having a grand time. And this last week, we welcomed a new special educator who joined us for new grad, just got out of Castleton and jumped in with both feet on Monday and went to the mountain to help the kids snowboard and ski, and is doing a great job just joining us and getting used to what it takes to be a special educator in our system. So that's what's going on in January.
Thank you. Thank you. Fred?
Thank you. We continue to celebrate our learning. We have kids doing presentations on the things that they are learning. This Friday we have a handful of kids from kindergarten, first and second to do a reader's theater, and we're going to celebrate that with our PBIS and a 100-day celebration. So the staff's making cupcakes, so all the kids will have cupcakes to celebrate as well. The staff is observing one another. I think I might have mentioned this last time. And they're going into each other's classroom during their break times and whatnot to see what's going on. And then we share that out at the staff meeting so that everybody's sharing what they're learning and what they've picked up tip-wise from their colleagues, which is going really, really well. Calling that the Rising Tide Project. Our activities are in session. As you know, we're not doing the skiing, but we've been doing a number of different things. We've bowled, we've hiked, we've done a lot of outdoor activities. Just today and tomorrow we'll be going to Castellan University for a presentation there. The kids are a cultural presentation. We got Wonder Feet coming in and spending a day with us, Wonder Feet Museum, doing an interactive, innovative workshops for each grade. Random Act of Kindness Day is the day of our break, and so we're challenging the kids to go out and do a random act of kindness on a daily basis and then come back and report that back. Our 6th grade has another episode on PEG TV if you want to check that out. And just to piggyback, our cheering team did a really good job. We have 1st place and a 2nd place. We have a lot of participants and they're just having a blast. So. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Jody, we'll finish elementary with you and then we'll move on.
All right. Thanks for your patience. So things have been going awesome up at Shrewsbury Mountain School. Recently, we had a community event that was not a school-run event, but was held at the school called Shrewsbury Snow Day. It's just a nice time in January for community members just to get together in this time where we're less likely to run into each other on the road. But, you know. Our Shrewsbury Mountain School students wanted a talent show and worked with some community members to create a student-run, student-organized, and student-hosted talent show, which was adorable and really appreciated. They pulled all the grown-ups up and made them do the YMCA and a little bit of chicken dancing. Had a great time. Basketball is underway. This year Shrewsbury has its own team, which is hasn't happened in a while. I think since Sarah was a student there. And so the kids are super excited to rep their new colors that they got in the school's redesign, that nice mustard color. And they're doing pretty well. We had a naturalist come up last week and talk about the importance of conserving land for wildlife at the school. Sabrina McDonough organized that with the local conservation society, and so kids really loved that chance just to learn about our natural community with their parents at nighttime. Very excited about getting the Farm to School grant. This is a state grant through the Department of Agriculture. It provides $15,000 to support our Trailhead initiative up at Shrewsbury to connect to our sustainability measures. So we are working with Shelburne Farms, with Sage, which is a local Shrewsbury nonprofit, Tammy, our school chef, some teachers, and some very excited parents and local farmers to look to increase the ways that we are using farm to school connections in our cafeteria, in our classrooms, and strengthening our ties to the community. Gonna be fun stuff coming up. Today we had our harvest of the month. The kids, the 2nd graders in Miss Rice's class, made sweet potato fries with a garlic aioli from local sweet potatoes and gave a taste test to the entire school. The Harvest of the Month program really is just meant to show kids healthy menu items, get them cooking, get them excited about them, and talk about the arc of our food systems over a school year. So sweet potatoes is something that you can have locally in February. It's February already. Winter sports keep going. We are having a good time. Almost every single kiddo is up and running. Those are always such tiring days, but it's so amazing to see, especially the kids that get up on that lift for the first time and they are so proud of themselves. And before you know it, they're whizzing past you and you're pushing to keep up. And the last thing I want to do is just introduce Ms. Sarah Fry, in case some of you don't know her. So Sarah is the Shrewsbury After School Director. She is one of my favorite human beings on the planet. She is an amazing young woman. She will be giving Carrie's report later, but I just want to say that we love having her direct after school at Shrewsbury.
Thank you. Thank you, Jody. So Tyler,
Okay, so let's see, about 2 weeks ago, our Model UN Club had a successful trip to Yale for their Model UN seminar. Like the elementary schools, our Pathways Winter Sports Program is up and running. They go to Pico for 5 Thursdays in a row. They started 2 weeks ago, and I had the pleasure of going skiing with one of our kids, and it was fun. It was their first time that for the season that I went up with them, and they got their rentals and everything. And it was I ski with one student in particular, and he gives me a run for my money. He's a fast student, and we always go off into the woods and different kind of things. And it's a good time. I like to try and get out at least once, maybe twice with those kids. And it was funny. They thought I was going to come every week. So this past week, they're, "Where's Mr. Wiedemann? We can't ski without Mr. Wiedemann." And then, so made me feel a little bad, but also really nice that they really, it's a fun time to go skiing with them. This past week was our Spirit Week. It's kicking off the second semester, culminating in a volleyball tournament between staff and students. We had 13 teams, 3 of which were staff teams, and it came down to, of all things in the final, 2 staff teams playing each other. So, staff won. Not happy. The kids had the option of either watching the game or being in the library if they didn't want to be in the auditorium. As soon as both staff teams went on, it was like an exodus of students out of the gym. It was kind of weird. They didn't want to watch the teachers go at it. But we won. Let's see. This week, our Stafford visits are going on for kids who want to go to Stafford potentially for next year. Also, like elementary schools, our winter sports program for our regular athletics programs is in full swing. Friday night, if you're not busy, provided we have the game, given the forecast, we are playing Fairhaven, so that's for our boys basketball team, and that's going to be a very heated match, as they're one of our biggest rivalries. It'll be a packed house, but still a really good game. Report cards will be going out Friday for the first semester. And also a rescheduled snow coming dance. It's very ironic that that's this weekend, because they had to cancel it for all things snow 2 weeks ago. So now we're coming back at it for this Saturday night, and I'm always kind of poking at the organizer of the event, saying we're going to cancel again due to snow. But yeah, whatever. We're going to be kicking off scheduling for the second semester, or excuse me, for next year after February break. So basically the formal schedule for next year is almost done. We'll be done by the end of the week, and then talk with the counselors and our students and start that scheduling process right after February break. And then one thing, if you are interested, next Wednesday will be our Singing Valentines. So all of our students that are involved in the choral program can have a song purchased, if you will, and they actually do go out into the community and sing the whatever song that person picks. So that'll be happening on Wednesday during our block days. So.
excellent. Thank you. Yeah, busy. We'll move on to central office reports. So Dave, do you want to kick that off?
So first, Tyler, maybe you should rename the dance Spring Coming, and then,
Well, see, the irony to this is I just want to cancel it due to snow and then wait till May and call it prom.
also an option. I'm sure he
I know,
appreciates
cold.
You have my written report. Board members, right at the start of the meeting, I sent you the calendar for the 2021 school year. We've got that finalized. I've not released that publicly yet, but I will send that to staff and families probably this Friday, end of this week. But I want you to have it before anyone else. Just in the big picture, please bear with me as I open that document. Big picture, first day of student attendance, Wednesday the 26th. For those of you who have kids in the system, you know that this year we tried something slightly different. We started on a Monday, of all things, instead of the historical Wednesday. We're going back to the Wednesday for next year. But Labor Day doesn't cooperate with us, because usually when we have a Wednesday start, you've got 3 days, and then Labor Day week for 4 days, and then 5 days, and everybody feels good about easing in. Labor Day is a week late this year, so that whole thing is thrown off. And the tentative last day of the school year is tentatively set for Monday, June 7th, and we all know that that will never happen. So we extend the school year as the snow falls, and we'll take it from there. Any questions for me on my report or anything that I shared with you?
Questions? Okay, thank you. Brian?
So we're in a little bit of a lull. You heard the elementary principals speaking about our winter testing. So they do start testing. It's about a 20-minute ELA, 20-minute math assessment. And the really cool theme there is we're checking in halfway through the year and we're seeing how our students are doing. We're thinking about how things are going and how can we make adjustments and continue preparing them to be successful. The work I'm most excited about right now, we just spent a bunch of time as a leadership team today looking at how to systematize that process. It's easy to look at numbers and say, yeah, let's try something different. Let's see if it works. It's hard to do that in a way that consistently puts you going in the right direction. So as a leadership team, it's exciting to be, I think, diving more deeply into how that can actually work. So that's very exciting. That lull is happening because we've got a little bit before our big state mandated testing happens. So the large English and math SBAC assessments that we take, those are really maybe multi-day assessments. Those are going to hit in the spring. We've got a PE assessment from the state. We've got a science assessment from the state. Those are those one-shot, once a year, big assessments, and those will be taking up really a lot of our time once we hit end of February, early March. So from there on, that's going to be a lot of what keeps us busy. Health office is staying really busy. It's flu season. It was timely that we had some good flu guidance coming out to folks a little ahead of the curve, and we're seeing a lot of folks being out now. So that's something that's keeping them busy. They're doing really good work trying to manage that, stay on top of that, do what's best for the kids who are there, and try and work with families to help them understand how to care for their kids who aren't in. Technology, this morning actually I was meeting with our guys. We're having the big picture conversation of, so what are we doing in the summer? We've got time for big projects. What are we going to do so that next year goes smoother, easier, which is a great conversation to have. The analogy we were using this morning was, how do we manage the forest so that we don't have a crazy forest fire and have to call everybody in to help? You know, what are we doing now so that the fires don't come up later to have to be put out? Yeah, there are things we always got to jump on and fix when they come up. But it's nice to be in a place where we're doing more of the proactive than the reactive at this point. I think that covers our main areas. Questions on any of that? Andy?
Brian, I have a comment for another question. I was really struck by your technology update, and one of the things you said was, with nothing new to report. And I thought back to how many years ago when we were constantly running to catch up, and we were reactive. We weren't even possibly able to think of being proactive. And here you're already talking about next year and computers and replacements, and so what a change.
Andy, I appreciate that. I do want to say we don't have it perfect yet. Yeah, we still do have the fires,
Yes.
but I appreciate the comment.
It's all relative.
Fair.
The fires only take one pumper, not 5 and 3 ladder trucks.
True, and we don't have ladder trucks, so it's a good thing that they're small.
Any other questions for Brian? Okay, thank you. Andrew?
Yeah, so as I wrote in the report, our most recent early release day was focused on proficiency-based learning, really revisiting the why of that and trying to unpack it, because a lot of times we talk about proficiency-based learning as this kind of big thing, when in reality it's more of a package of best practices, such as having clear and transparent learning expectations, utilizing formative assessment, etc. And so again, just revisiting that to kind of continue the communication efforts with teachers and educators in the buildings around what it is that we're trying to do. Also in the report, as I indicated, it's still very much in the beginning stages, but working with Deborah Gardner-Bosch to look at our several-year-old literacy plan and kind of doing a full revamp of that. Additionally, looking back at our set of performance indicators and working with grade levels and content areas to revise those. They really haven't been revised much since they were written, I think, over 4 years ago. So that's we're trying to figure out what that process is going to look like so that it can be teacher-owned and be efficient, but make sure that we have substantive changes to those as well. Any questions?
How comfortable are teachers starting to feel with the
There's still some discomfort, particularly at the high school. I would say that my main focus, particularly this year, has been at the high school. So I've been working quite a bit with Tyler and others. That's not to say that there aren't issues at the elementary school, but at the elementary school, it's less of a major shift because they've been doing this work a little bit longer. But at the high school level, there's a variety of kind of issues around it. Really, I mean, it does force a lot of changes that have, different from what have been done in the past. So we're making slow changes, but it does take some time. So we've been doing this work now for about 4 years, so prior to my coming here. But what I've found through my own kind of research at schools is that it really takes 8 to 10 years for this kind of shift to become business as usual. So this is going to be an ongoing effort to continue supporting teachers, continue supporting students, doing no harm to students, and also support, helping parents understand what this shift means, because it's in a lot of ways a lot different than what they experience in school, and as we know, any sort of change is incredibly hard.
Yeah.
I've been hearing some folks express confusion between the difference between proficiency-based learning and proficiency-based grading.
Yep.
Particularly parents.
Yep.
Who have a difficult time following their kids' academic progress, where they're struggling, where they're doing well. Is there anything that we can do to help people better understand, first of all, the difference between the two, and then work on helping make proficiency-based grading a little bit easier to follow as a parent? Because I'm a lot more used to it than most parents, and I can't even follow my kids' grading at times. So
yeah, a lot to talk about there. So yeah, proficiency-based learning, that's grading is part of that, but grading really, when it comes down to it, is where there's the confusion and everything. I mean, if you were to poll most parent or most teacher and start asking about proficiency-based learning, you would not get much pushback. Like, should we have clear and transparent learning expectations? Yeah, we should. Should we provide feedback? Yes, we should. Should we use a 1, 2, 3, 4 scale based on specific performance indicators and proficiencies? That's when people start asking questions. It was a month or so ago, Tyler, Brian, and I did a proficiency-based graduation requirements kind of information night for a pretty good sized group of parents, 20 folks or so. And a lot of questions were brought up that gave us some kind of information to inform our move going forward. We're in the process of planning another information night for, whomever, parents, students, etc. The other thing that Tyler and I have been planning is what sort of information we provide to students that will help them better understand this as well. Again, my work right now is trying to pinpoint what are the exact things that folks are confused on within just the kind of the broader piece of grading. One of the issues that we're really focused on, and this has been the hardest thing across the state, because this is just kind of the problem with implementing any sort of change in schools, is getting to a high level of consistency from one teacher to the next, because what's existed prior is a wide variety of grading systems within a school where teacher A does this and teacher B does this. This teacher allows extra credit, this teacher doesn't allow extra credit, etc., etc. And we're trying to get to a higher level of consistency to kind of take away that game of school where a teacher or students have to figure out how one teacher does it versus another, but we are still in that system. And so Tyler and I are trying to find the balance of saying, like, we don't want to have a bunch of mandates to say we have to do it all in this way, but we're moving towards needing to set some stricter guidelines around things such as reassessments, extra credit, which shouldn't be happening, but still may be happening, but really trying to get to closer consistency from one teacher to another within the same building.
timely posting of assignments and grades is also an issue with some teachers. Some are better at it than others.
Yeah. And
Speak
that-
from my own experience
Yeah,
on that, trying
and
to
you
follow
know,
my kids' grades.
And that's just like absent of PBL would still be there.
Oh, yeah.
You know, this is my own opinion that, it's just my opinion. I think some of the issues we're seeing stem from the move to an online grading system. When I first started teaching 10 years ago, that was just kind of on the cusp of when that was becoming more out there, and it's made grades like way more in your face, accessible to students, parents, because you can access them 24/7, and I think that has played into things. But I guess in answer to your question, it's an ongoing element of what I've been working on, working closely with Brian and Tyler particularly, to provide further clarity for teachers so that they can provide further clarity to students so that parents have further clarity as well. So ongoing communication efforts.
Just remember that I used to say about my daughter, she listened to half of what was told to her, remembered half of that, and told us half of that. So when you're trying to communicate with parents through students, you may not be getting as much information out as you think.
True, yeah. And that
Just keep it in mind, that's
the
all.
only avenue.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? Oh, go ahead. No.
Just how much pushback have you gotten? I mean, there's always been the competition at just about every school for, you know, salutatorian, head of the class.
Mhm.
How are we doing
That hasn't changed.
that? So are you assigning?
That's based on rank.
No, I mean, obviously it's still confusing because
Yeah.
I mean, I know you have the 1 through 4 and you're just
Mhm.
translating a number to get that same grade point average.
Yeah, I mean, really, the 0 through 4 is like, it's just a grade point average system.
Okay.
Yeah, but we still have the salutatorian and valedictorian and GPA and class rank as well.
I wasn't sure if that was all being translated in the same way.
Yeah, we're trying to have a balance between traditional practices and proficiency, and have some bridging practices such as keeping GPA. Like, I don't see any issues with that. Really, at the root of it, it's about being clear with where students are struggling and where they're being successful, instead of saying you have a B in biology to indicate, well, you understand this concept here, but you're struggling on this concept here. I mean, that's a super basic way of saying it, but that's the ultimate goal with the system, is just providing better information for all stakeholders.
Any questions?
No, but I do have a statement. My daughter, 7th grade, she had to improve her, I think, language. And she worked really hard on a project, and she got absolutely excited when she got her 4. So that concept of getting excited about working hard toward the A, I guess there is some translation to getting a 4 and changing the term. So I'm just going to say that there is some.
And it's easier to know what you need to do it.
So.
Exactly.
Thank you for sharing that. Okay, Gary.
I'm actually very pleased that I don't have anything to talk about.
Wow.
Things are relatively calm for the department right at the moment. We're done with our major projects that we started last spring. February break, we are basically doing routine testing, those type of things, just fire alarms, systems, those things. We're really starting to look forward to the spring and summer construction season at this point. So it's peaceful and nice for a change. But I'd be happy to answer any questions.
I got a question.
Yes, sir.
Oh, yeah. As you know, I kind of snuck out a little early last night, so I may have missed something important. So I'll ask the question I was going to get to there. Is you are getting things working from our construction effort this summer, and I would guess at some point we'll start gonna see more reports. We have had some from you in terms of the efficiencies that are starting to be visual. What kind of reports or what kind of indicators are we gonna be able to see in terms of how well things are going in terms of the money that's been spent?
I think what we'll start doing then, George, is start having our consultants, that the EEI group, the energy consultants, start putting together more formal reports so that we can actually present those and talk about those. We do meet periodically with them and we go over things informally from the computer as opposed to having a written report in front of us. We're looking at the data that the systems gather, and we're fine-tuning systems based on that information. But we'll be happy to start getting something more formal in front of the board. That's a good idea.
You know, it takes a while to get into a continuous, even running phase, I would think, with this, because you talked about the fine tune-ups of your biomass burner and all that sort of thing. So at some point, I would make more sense probably to start with these reports. And so what kind of anticipation do you have of when that might be?
We'll have something ready for the next board meeting.
Wonderful. Thank you. That's it. Thank you.
Any questions?
Gary, can you just tell the folks what you shared with the rest of us about the biomass plant, about being able to change how we're using that recently because of the warmer weather?
Yeah, actually, for the last week and a half, through the computer system, I've actually shut off our oil burner entirely, so it's not even allowed to be used. We've been able to fine tune the system well enough that, at least in these weather conditions, that it hasn't been needed. We continue to modify things. We actually implemented a fairly large-scale change to a program with the biomass system yesterday that actually monitors throughout the building the position of certain steam valves, and as the steam level in the biomass system rises and falls, we control the valve level to an absolute minimum, so that we're really just really starting to reduce the amount of fuel that we're using.
Thanks.
Any questions? Any other questions for Gary? Welcome, Sarah.
Hi. Yeah, so as Jody said, I am Sarah Fry. I direct the after-school program at Shrewsbury Mountain School. Carrie couldn't be here, but she said you all have a copy of the report. It's all based off of the Engage, the Mill River Engage program, and the Bowes Trust. She didn't really give me much more than what you have in front of you, but she did ask me to say, if you have any questions, forward them to herself, and she'd be more than happy to answer. Beyond that, though, I am going to be working with Carrie closely throughout the rest of February and into March on the Clarendon Summer Camp program. So I will be very closely involved with that. I mean, if you have any more questions, that's about all I have.
I was just thinking that there were a lot of questions tonight, and as you're sitting there, you're probably going, oh my goodness, what did Carrie do?
Talking about valves, steam.
It's like, well, I know. Thank you very much for coming and presenting that. And then we'll move on. Stan.
What's that? Not too exciting.
Stan, I always have one question. Are we sure that your report's going to add up?
Sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't.
It's on the level.
Well, that's good.
I gave you a report up through January 31st for the general fund.
Yeah.
And as of now, we're estimating a deficit of $463,000, but our budgeted deficit is $520,000, and that's the surplus we use to cover that deficit. So we are still under that deficit as of January 31st. You might have noticed I still haven't sent any updated lunch report. It's kind of been on, keeps on going down the list as far as priority for our office. We devoted much of our time this year, or this second half of the year, of getting ready for the calendar year reporting. One of the troubles of starting July 1st is the IRS doesn't care that you have it on two systems. Somehow you got to get everything converted into one system so you can give people their W-2s, 1099s, and, you know, any other reporting that is calendar year based. So that took up a lot of our time, is getting the first 6 months of information into the new system so we could do those reports and W-2s. Happily, we were able to get that all completed successfully. Everything was filed in time by January 31st, so now maybe we can devote a little bit more time to getting, you know, things like the lunch program up to date, and we can have a report hopefully within, you know, the next central office reports for the next board meeting, whenever that may be, March, April. One thing I also wanted to say is I did get a draft copy of the audit report that came in last week. That was a completely clean report, no issues to report. So and regarding the financials, they will be issuing you a letter to the board with I think there might be 3 recommendations. And I think I said in my report that we could probably discuss that at the next finance meeting in March as to whether or not we want to go through with those recommendations. And that's all I have. Do you have any questions?
I just want to say, I so enjoy hearing you say there's nothing to report.
I do too.
Yeah. Yeah.
I always like,
Yes.
I always kind of hold my breath when I get the email.
Well, when you say we got the preliminary, I'm sitting there.
Yep.
Okay. Well, Stan, do you just want to move into the student activity accounts?
Sure. We are requesting some action that the board will take regarding the high school student activity account. I'd like to take credit for the great report that was done, but that was not me. That was Cassie Sajeko? Tyler, is that Seco? Cassie Seco, Tyler's assistant, that put all that information together. I think she did an outstanding job. I just did the summary page of what needs to be done by you guys. The first one would be a resolution from the board to open up 3 new student activity accounts. So I guess I would need a resolution for that.
So moved.
Okay, is there a second?
I'll second that.
Thank you. Any discussion? Questions for Stan on that? Okay. Hearing none, all those in favor of the resolution to have the 3 student accounts? You can give, and,
Yeah, I
Yeah.
can give her the names. That's for sure.
okay. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Any abstentions? And?
Okay. The next one would be the board to approve, I guess, Tyler's recommendation regarding consolidating student activity accounts. A lot of these accounts, I guess, can be combined into just one account, so we can reduce the number of accounts that need to be reconciled. So I think you had that list in your packet of all the funds that they would like to transfer the remaining dollars in those accounts to these. Some of them are the new accounts that they asked to be opened, and some are already existing.
Okay, and someone make that motion?
So moved.
Thank you. Is there a second? Thank you. Any discussion, questions on that? All those in favor of following Tyler's recommendation regarding the consolidation of the student activity accounts, please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Any abstentions?
The next one is we need a resolution from the board to close out the following student accounts, which, you know, some of them, again, were part of the transfer of money out to these other accounts, and also accounts that have had no activity, at least within the last 3 years.
Okay.
So we need a resolution for that.
So moved.
I'll second that.
Thank you. Discussion?
Yep. Are you going to have any trouble consolidating accounts that are set up like in a memorial type of account?
I was told, no, most of these memorial accounts were for athletics, so that those accounts were going to be put into the athletic memorial fund that they were requesting to be opened. So in that case, no. The class accounts, again, those classes are no longer here, so they got those approved by the student. I think you saw the signatures by the student rep and the student advisor to have those accounts closed out and transferred into another fund.
Okay.
And also the scholarship funds, there's still some small scholarships that were, I guess, started in the activity account. And all those scholarships, will be tracked, but they will be just put under a miscellaneous scholarship account, so there will only be one with a lot of the little scholarships instead of being separately listed.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions for Stan?
I have a quick question for Stan and probably Tyler. And when you deal with student accounts, as I've done in the past, and my question is that do you folks feel comfortable that you have a system of checks and balances to make sure that things go smoothly in terms of not having one person have the total responsibility of the accounts and the actual physical monies?
Oh, sure, yeah. I mean,
Okay.
there's a lot of checks and balances to that, and I would say that if any of those student accounts want to be accessed or used, or for whatever purpose they're meant to be used for, that first would go on whoever's requesting that.
Yeah.
It goes to Cassie Seco, who's in charge of all the accounts. I approve things, Stan approve things, so there's a lot of checks and balances.
Thank you, I appreciate that.
To go one step further, the person in my office, we've got the high school account on a QuickBooks software program, and the person in my office is connected with Cassie, and she's able to see all the activity that happens within that account and
Good.
reconciles it every month.
Good.
George, when you ask a question like that, the whole audience holds their breath waiting for the joke at the end. So, everybody's going, oh, this is real, okay. We're
gonna get checks and balances. I figured it was all over.
Well, as far as the joke is concerned, in this kind of a discussion, you can certainly bank on one.
There it is.
Okay, and now we'll have the vote on the closing out of those accounts and consolidation per the documentation that was circulated by Stan to the board.
Yep.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Any abstentions? Okay.
And one more request, and this has to do with a student activity account that had a deficit in it. I guess this is AP exam account. The deficit is $1,634.60, so we're requesting that the board approve us funding that deficit from the general fund.
So moved.
Second? Thank you. Any discussion? Questions?
Yes, to pay.
So when students take the AP exams, they do pay for those exams themselves. However, there are various activities or memberships, if you will. If a student is part of VSAC or Upper Bound, then they cover the cost of the exam. We do have some students that have the hardship of not being able to pay that fee for the test. We cover that.
$1,600 is quite a bit. How long has that built up? I mean, I'm not saying we shouldn't do it.
No.
I'm just-
That's been over
Yeah.
probably the last 4 years.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, typically.
So maybe we'll look at it every year.
Yeah, this guy, it got looked at when we were looking at all the accounts in regards to closing and consolidating.
I'm not questioning.
No, that's fine.
Okay. All those in favor of approving the transfer of funds to the general fund, from the general fund to cover the deficit on the AP exam student account, please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Any abstentions? Okay.
I have a final question. All of this information will be posted in the minutes and on the website? So we'll have it documented?
Yep, we can.
Great, thank you.
Actually, can I answer that one more? In terms of looking at that ahead of time, I have set aside funds for next year to cover that.
No, I mean, it's a great idea. You don't want to run.
Yeah, I don't
Yeah.
want to get bigger.
Okay, great. Thank you. We'll move on to personnel.
Okay, yes. We met tonight, actually, and we're continuing work chiefly on the evaluation of the superintendent and developing that evaluation tool. And we talked tonight about who we might interview and speak with in terms of getting their opinions on the superintendent's evaluation. And so at our next meeting, which will be March 4th at 6 o'clock, we're going to be discussing who's going to be interviewing, what questions we're going to be asking them, and because we don't feel that everybody needs to answer all of the questions on the evaluation tool. That, you know, the central office staff who works with David on a regular basis maybe ask different questions than, for example, we're going to interview the Stafford director. So she might not be as familiar with what David does on a day-to-day basis. So we would probably choose different questions for her to answer. So, and then the principals are going to be included as well. And we're going to develop a rotating system, because even looking at it now, we're up to about 10 folks that we'll be looking to talk to. So it won't be everybody every year. So, for example, we may choose 2 principals this year, and then we choose 2 other principals next year, so that it kind of rotates through. Otherwise, it's going to be pretty unwieldy. And then the board will also be filling out the evaluations, and BJ is going to be compiling them all. And I'm really excited about it. We haven't had at least in my time on the board, we haven't had a real good evaluation tool, and I think this has the makings of being a good evaluation tool. So March 4th, excuse me, at 6 o'clock for the next Personnel Committee.
Thank you. George, policy?
Good evening, everyone. I'm going to try very hard to keep my report no more than an hour, so relax. We have several policies that I'd like to have adopted this evening, and one that I would like to have rescinded this evening. You should have all gotten a copy by email of the form of those policies, and when we get to that point. We met last night, and our discussion was, we spent a great deal of time on a draft of an equity policy that was presented to the policy committee by the folks that have been working, the community that's been working on the equity issues. And we had Jody who was there, and Marie was there, and also Liz helped in that presentation. And I thought it was a very good discussion, and the result was that there were a few minor suggestions that the policy group has got the responsibility of touching those up and bring them back to policy committees so that we can get them ready for a first reading in the very near future. And I would like to take this time to thank the group of community folks and school folks that worked on this effort. It took a lot of hours, I know, a lot of meetings, and particularly want to thank the board members that were involved and the administrators that were here that were involved, particularly Jody and her work last night, who when she got home I sure was ready to go to sleep. So thank you one and all, and I would ask my fellow board members for a little round of applause for that group. Now, let's see, on the policies that we want to adopt, I'm going to take them one at a time, and I'm starting off with D7, volunteers and work-study students, and I move that we adopt this policy as presented.
Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion? All those in favor of approving D7 as presented, please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Any abstentions?
Okay, thank you, and I forgot to mention that I do have copies here if anybody needs to, I have a copy of each of these. If anybody needs to look at one real quick, please just let me know. Policy number 2 is D13, Employee Code of Conduct. This is a new policy that we worked on for a bit to get it into the shape that you have seen it in the first reading and now has seen it prior to my motion to adopt this policy. So I so move to adopt this policy and looking for a second.
Second?
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor of approving D13 Employee Code of Conduct, please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Any abstentions?
Okay, the next one is D11 drug and alcohol testing of transportation employees. I move that we adopt this policy.
Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Doug. Any discussion?
Yes.
Okay.
Go to it.
George, I've had a lot of experience with this, and there are two areas of concern, but I think they've been addressed. I just wanted to pass them by you.
Certainly.
They deal with testing for drugs, and my experience, certain medications certainly trigger positive results, and it says here that the medical person will review it, and I think that will take care of it. Hopefully, they're fully appraised of prescription meds and/or they talk to a pharmacist. What does concern me is THC.
Yes.
And we've had experience where we've got false positives on our tests with the clients, and it got to the point where we did not react when we got a false positive, and that we sent it back for additional testing. I see no reference to additional testing, but I feel comfortable that that would be followed up in such a manner. And so my question is, from your discussions, do you think it would, if it came up positive for THC, the person would be removed from their sensitive position immediately, referred to a drug and alcohol counselor? Would additional testing follow up?
Well, my indication is from our discussion, particularly with the administrators that have been involved, is that they would certainly take every effort to make sure that an employee was in a situation where they should be suspended. So I don't imagine it would be a whoops, done deal right off the bat, but I'll refer to the superintendent.
Yeah, I think we have a responsibility to make sure that students are safe, number one.
Yes.
And number two, take care of our employees. So if we found ourselves in the scenario you described, we need to find a path, working with the medical professionals who, generate the results for us to support those employees as best as possible, unless it gets to
Under
the
the
point
circumstances.
that we can't support them.
Great, that's what I thought.
Can
I just wanted to confirm that.
So do you
Thank you.
want to
Something-
return this to committee?
No,
or-
I don't.
Okay.
I just wanted to
John had
confirm
a
that.
question.
Can I just interject something? As having been a person who had to administer these programs before for 8 years, generally a positive result first is reviewed by the MRO. They talk to the employee who, if they provide prescription drug information, they research that, make sure that the prescription is valid, and then it would, if it all lines up, that would be returned as a negative result in terms of the testing. All of this is governed by federal law.
Yeah.
Because these are commercial driver's licenses.
Yep.
So state statutes like legalizing recreational marijuana do not apply
Right.
to CDL holders because it's federally administered.
Regulated.
So my experience with a positive result, and I have had experience with positive results for marijuana, is that that a retest would be automatically part of the protocol. So that would be part of the drug testing protocol that would be recommended by the MRO, would be a follow-up test. The person should be removed from safety-sensitive functions until that test was administered and results were returned, but they wouldn't necessarily immediately be suspended from work in general. In my experience, generally, I can't speak to the school, but that's usually how the process would work in those settings.
That's what I thought, just wanted to confirm it. Thank both of you. Three of you.
Any other questions, discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of adopting D11 drug and alcohol testing for transportation employees, please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Any abstentions?
Thank you. Next was F5, education records. Again, this is a policy that we reviewed from the last time that it was discussed. And I think there, a lot of these, there's just a few minor changes to make sure it falls in line with our new unified district. So I move that F5 education records be adopted.
Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Doug. Any discussion on F5? Hearing none, all those in favor of adopting F5 education records, please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Any abstentions?
And there was a little sticky note there. Okay, next one, F14, admission of non-resident tuition students. And there again, this is a review of an existing policy, and I move that we adopt F14, admission of non-resident tuition students.
Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Doug. Any discussion on this policy? Questions? Okay, hearing none. All those in favor of adopting F14, admission of non-resident tuition students, please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Any abstentions?
The next one is F14.1, special education excess cost and related services for non-resident and tuition students. This policy is, I'm moving for this to be rescinded because a policy provides for benefits, I guess it would be the word to say, that we can't legally provide to the folks that are in this position. So I move that we rescind policy F14.1, special education excess costs and related services for non-resident and tuition students.
Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Doug. Any discussion on F14.1? Hearing none, all those in favor of rescinding F14.1, special education excess costs and related services for non-resident tuition students, please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Any abstentions?
Thank you. And the last one, which I, last night forgot slipped by me, and it shouldn't have, on, Liz, on your list, participation of home study students has been done. F23, participation of home study students. Again, this is a review of an existing policy, and I move that we adopt this policy as well.
Second?
As everybody in the personnel committee knows, today is number 2, so second.
Thank you. Any discussion? F23. All those in favor of adopting F23, participation of home study students, please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Any abstentions?
I got two other items here, and the first one is going to involve my fellow board colleague Liz for just a short while. One of the things that we got talking about last night in our deliberation on equity is the distinction between equality and equity. And Liz had a neat little, I guess you'd say, visual that helps to demonstrate that. Would you like to give us a few minutes?
Sure. So in our discussion last night, it came up what is the difference between equality and equity. And so I can't take credit for this image. I give credit to Shay Totten, who is our communications director at Rights and Democracy. Can you see this, William? Okay. Can everybody else see it? We can pass it around. Basically, it depicts equality as everybody getting the same thing. And as you can see in this first image, you have a tall person, a medium-sized person, and a small person, and they're all given the same size block to stand on. That doesn't really help anybody. And then in the equity image, you have the same people, but the tall man, he doesn't need anything to stand on to see over the fence. And the two smaller people have exactly what they need. You know, this person has 1 block, this little person has 2 blocks in order to be able to see over the fence. So the net result being that equity is people get what they need versus equality, which is everybody gets the same thing. So
Great job.
Thank you. I
And-
can pass this around. I don't know that everybody at this table saw this image last night, and we can pass it around for anybody interested in seeing it.
And do me a favor, I had my lunch in a real quick hurry today, and you might see a pizza stain or two on the picture, so ignore that. Whoops, I'm sorry. Thank you. The last thing I have here is a very important thing, is that our next policy meeting is scheduled for the 4th, and I'm all excited about that until I realized that I'll probably be, 3rd. I was very excited about that until I realized that I'm supposed to be going 1, 2, 3 that night somewhere else. So what I'm suggesting is a couple of alternative dates. One is the 5th, which is that same week, and then the other one is the 10th, which would be after we get through our reorganization meeting and might be able to have some committee membership established by the 10th, or I would think. So anybody have any comments regarding the dates? Yes, ma'am.
The week of the informational meetings and the voting and all that stuff is pretty busy already, so how about we go for the 10th?
Yeah, that's kind of what I'm thinking, but is there anybody that the 10th would be a real hardship for? Let me put it that way. Okay, then the next meeting will be the 10th at 5 p.m. And where are we meeting that week? Do you have here probably?
Here, being the...
Yep, okay.
For a committee meeting, yeah, we'll do here.
Okay, so we'll be here on the conference room at 5 o'clock on the 10th of March.
Excellent.
And I am completed.
Thank you, George. Adrian, negotiations?
We're chugging along. We've had, we're getting our 3rd meeting together with the Teachers Association, and we have 3 nights scheduled for the support staff, or 2 nights, because one didn't work, sorry. So we'll be starting the support staff contract here. We'll be doing double duty.
Excellent. Thank you. Buildings and grounds. John?
Gary did a really good job of talking about basically everything we talked about at our meeting last night. So I'll leave it at that. Our next meeting will be following policy on the 10th at 6 o'clock, also here.
Excellent. Thank you. Community engagement. Maria?
Hi. So we had a meeting in January, and we've been learning more about what engagement is actually going on in the district currently, and there are a lot of things happening in different forms in the different schools, different school communities, individual to them. So looking at what more maybe needs to happen or be supported, and it's about getting information to people in a way that's accessible and clear, and it's about being able to hear from people in a way that we can listen to it and support people in what they need from it, and it's about building relationships more than we have right now. And so we have a few ideas that we've come up with that we wanted to bring to the board for more discussion tonight.
Sure.
One of them is to put a kind of, do you want to describe it if this is your creation?
My creation?
Yes.
Sure. So we would love to ask for the opportunity to create just some content for the school newsletters and also town newsletter. So for example, Timoth Mountain School has their newsletter that goes out. We also have the Tales of Timoth, which is our community-wide communication. What I'd like to do is offer to prepare, 300 to 500 words, just a little summary about what's going on with the board for the month. So I've been kind of diligently taking some notes just in case we go forward with it. But the community has really voiced throughout to Maria and I that they want a quick, easy reference so that they can see in fairly simple and readable language what exactly is going on, to identify things that are important or to raise their attention if they need to go back through the meeting minutes or ask for more information. So we'd like to ask if that's something that the board would support, that we could go forward with. I volunteered some writing skills and some time of my own to work on that. So what are your thoughts?
Because you're not busy enough. No.
I have a lot of free time, so.
Doing a sort of one that could go in any public.
Yeah, that's a great question. So I think it would be for all all the communities. So it would be one communication focusing on all of the content of the board for that month, and it would be available to all of our schools and all of our communities.
Like the idea.
We, well, can I say we? We in Shrewsbury, we write to the monthly newsletter, and I would be delighted to have content, and we can weave it into our, send it along. Has to be to us, well, deadline's the 20th, if you could get it to us by the 15th.
No problem.
Be
I
terrific.
would make a request from this group. If you would put, your first draft of this kind of effort, if you would send that to the Clarendon Select Board and tell them that what you're doing in the other communities with this piece of information, and wanted them to know that this is what we're trying to do, and was there any manner in which they might be able to help get it out within the Clarendon community? What do you think, John?
I think that would be an excellent idea.
So
Like
if
a
you guys would be
community
willing to
newsletter?
do that, we'd be very pleased, yes? What'd you say?
Community newsletter or something like that?
Something like that.
Got it.
I think I might have heard someone suggest that once or twice. a little while ago.
Maybe. It's familiar.
No, there hasn't been one in existence in Clarendon, except for maybe one publication in the 15 years I've been in town.
This could jump-start it
You
again.
did see several copies of the one I put out, yes?
Yes.
I thought
Yeah,
you
there's
had.
a
I had not planned on that.
No, what, sorry?
So Front Porch Forum, you can only post from your own town. So it might be an opportunity for, someone from Wallingford, like myself, or, to post. We could basically have,
I understand,
Yeah,
but I mean, it would be
town-specific
something that we could,
people.
of a size that could go, that'd be great.
Yeah, digestible and accessible and straightforward language. Maybe easier to read than minutes, with a link to minutes if someone wanted to get very specific about things.
I think the only thing that I would ask is that maybe before it gets submitted, it gets circulated so that when someone asks us, I saw this, we can, in Hannaford's, when they ask us, that we could address it and say, oh, yes, that's right, you saw that, and if you'd like more information, you can go here, here, or there, or next meeting, we're going to be talking about this. That's
a great
But I
idea.
think it's a great idea.
Yeah, I would agree.
Can we agree by consensus, or do we? That's fine?
Yep.
Okay. Then, there you go.
Wonderful. And then the next one is also related to Amy, but that we would like for not the next second board meeting where we have the professional development, but the following one, so not March, but
April.
To bring someone in who can. Amy, you're on. I can say it, but you can say it better.
So something else that we talked about with the community members that gave us feedback during the course of our meetings is that the approachability of the board members and the ability for us as board members to listen to their concerns without feeling defensive. I know for myself, in my own interactions, I have to be careful not to feel defensive if there's something coming up that I perceive as a criticism or as an issue. And so there's a really interesting model that we use at my employer, and we have someone who's volunteered to come from there who does our organizational training to provide us with a 30 or 60-minute training on how we engage with people, how we don't get defensive, and some tools to help kind of de-escalate people and offer solutions, build trusting relationships, all those things that I think would be of benefit to us as a group.
And Maria and Amy have both mentioned this to me previously, and I thought that it was a great idea, and we're just we wanted, I know, to do guidance before the vote and that, so we're trying to figure out a slot that we could fit it in, but if April works for everybody, I think that would be interesting.
By me?
Program.
Great.
It's the kind of thing, in my opinion, that you can always benefit from that sort of training, no matter what your experience or prior training has been. So I would say, yes, let's do it.
Good. And they've graciously offered to volunteer their time, which was very nice.
Yes.
So I think it's a great opportunity for everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Great, thanks, everybody. And finally, if we could talk about it now, we could talk about it later, but Sean brought it up about having an email address for committees. We didn't entirely agree in our discussion the other day whether that would be a helpful thing, but just in general, how do you feel about adding another layer of information coming in?
Well, just
Who
speaking
would be
for
responsible
myself
for
as chair of policy, I have no problem with people just using my email.
Okay.
That's just how I'm
I
at.
mean, not that anybody ever emails me about negotiations. Every now and then, somebody but I think it would be another email to put into your mail and you know.
I wouldn't, it might be just as simple to put the person's email, school email address.
Well, that was something we were talking about, recommending for the website, was putting, we have our names and we potentially will have photos or bios, but to put in an actual link that people can contact that board member knowing that they're on whichever committees that they're on.
Yes.
But that doesn't exist currently
I
on the
mean,
website.
when I was first on the Mill River High School Board, I think most of us did, we just used an email. It was our personal school, whatever.
Right.
And we did have an occasion during that time period, maybe Andy was there, I can't remember, where it was a concern that we might have our emails requested. And so at that time is when we separated having a private versus a school. And that's still in place as far as I know. Well, it is for me anyway, so I'm happy to use a school email.
That's all, that's helpful. And that's one of the things that we'd like to see in the website, is making us more accessible and more clear what our roles are on the board.
I also think the idea behind having a email address for a specific committee is, it may be easier for people to just email to a committee than to try to figure out who the chair of that committee is or who the members of that committee are. And I think we discussed that as one of the pros of doing that. And then that could be handled administratively over time, you know, if committee chairs change, for me, buildings and grounds at millriverschools.org would go to me, but if I were to not be the chair anymore, then someone, I assume Brian probably, would redirect that to go to someone else, whoever the chair of that is. So all that happens behind the scenes, but if someone has a particular question for a particular committee, they don't have to go through and try to figure out who is on that, who chairs that. So I think that was a big thing.
Yeah, I would piggyback. I was going to say something like that. I also think that it might be easier if someone had a policy question, for instance, to email policy@millriverschools.org than to try and figure out who on policy, or perhaps it's a question that they don't necessarily want to engage a specific person with, but as a general...
Feel safer.
Yeah, there's another layer. So I just think to find who to email might be easier if it's policy, B&G, negotiations, whatever.
Well,
So
are you suggesting that this group email could be automatically rerouted?
Yes.
Oh, and I'm happy with that, sure.
I think the way I would suggest setting it up is something called an alias. So everybody has their email addresses, and you can set up aliases to go to those. So I would, as a policy member, I don't think I would want every email that would go to policy. I'd rather it go through the chair. So I would say whoever the chair is could have that alias assigned to them, policy@millriver.
Okay.
Grounds.
Yeah, that would be fine.
And then if something changes, it's a few clicks on.
Okay,
Brian.
that sounds really reasonable. Okay.
I'm fine by that.
Shall we ask how easy it is? Should we ask the person who has to do it how easy that is? We're volunteering him for something.
Never stopped anybody.
I'm trying to be nice.
we have such faith in you, Brian, see?
In the realm of things that I deal with, that's one of the easiest things in the world.
That's what I thought. But I thought we should at least ask you.
BJ was volunteering to do it.
It almost sounded like that, yeah.
You want to give me access?
Do you have anything else for
Nope,
us?
that's all. Thank you.
Okay.
Oh, we do have a meeting next week on Tuesday.
And the warning already went out.
And the warning
Yes.
has already gone out.
Yes, very good. Thank you. Okay, and now we go to
Numbers.
the numbers.
Yes,
Yep.
so lots of big numbers here tonight. This is under the heading of combined, and these are checks dated for February 5th, 2020. Operating account, $658,742.98. Operating account, $17,051.81. Officials, $3,920. After-school fund, $1,078.42. Food service fund, $2,877.40. Another to the Food Service Fund, $177,472.85. Total of this combined is $861,143.46. Now I have another group of under combined, same date, February 5th, 2020, and they, are this identical? Yes. Oh, I would have repeated all those, never mind. I know. Right, so we're on to payroll. A batch dated January 16th, 2020, $5,994.82. Then a batch dated January 17th, 2020, $572,251.39. Finally, a batch dated January 31st, 2020, $586,000. Did I read that? $586,693.50. Did I misread the one previously?
Yes, it sounds.
Okay. So January 17th, $572,251.39. January 31st, $586,693.50. The total of these batches is $1,164,939.71. I move that the combined checks, pay orders, and the payroll be approved as read.
Is there a
Second.
Thank you. George, discussion.
Yes, Doug, why don't you start?
Okay, we'll get rid of the two. Yeah, I was going through there in Shazam. I saw two different things I was looking at. One is a company called School Specialty. Deals a lot of furniture and stuff more than anything else. Has something they called a drying racket rack. Now I'm thinking one or three, so I'm looking at the price at $24.73. I'm figuring it's one. So a racket is just an extension. The second one I'm looking at was faucet replacements at both Wallingford and Clarendon. Gary just noticed this a number of months ago of checks looking for lead, and faucets are known to start giving off lead, especially the older they become. Lead is used in manufacturing and making things more mobile to turn brass into a faucet instead of a big chunk lump. And Shazam, guess what the costs of both of those were? $4,222. Today is a 2. And that's all I had.
Thank you, Doug. What prompted my question to Gary earlier was some of the different oil bill and gas bills, energy bills that were on the pay orders this particular time. Not that there was anything wrong with them, but it just jogged me into asking Gary the question that I did in terms of some reports to see how we're doing in terms of all of our efforts the past few months. So that's all I have. Otherwise, everything looked as it should have been, and I'm done.
Okay, any other questions, comments regarding pay orders or payroll? All those in favor of approving the pay orders and payroll as read, please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Any abstentions?
Next meeting of the Finance Committee is March 30th, Monday, unless something important comes up. We've been notified. And for the board members, I'll be working on information about our budget for those of you who go to town meeting or informational meetings. You'll have that information and my attempt at the explanation of the Vermont state tax system to help you.
Good luck.
So that will be, I'll be getting out to you in about 2 weeks.
We'll bring the
Hey,
aspirins.
you know, Andy, if you do a good job with that explanation, I'll invite you down to the Clarendon Town Hall to talk with a few voters.
Well, I'll make sure it's not
Not that good.
not that good. Not that good. At least to you. Everybody else will be.
Our student board member, Kelsey, she is not here. She's playing basketball this evening, but she did send me an email and asked me to update our fellow board members on what's going on. So she apologizes for not being here. She said she just participated in Model UN, as Tyler was referring to. And she said it was a lot of fun, and that she addressed the student government versus staff in the volleyball tournament. She also just said that the senior class just completed a truffle fundraiser, and my understanding is this Saturday they're doing a bottle drive. Is that here if anyone has bottles too? Okay, so if you have any bottles, cans you'd like to contribute to that cause, here is the place this Saturday, I presume in the morning probably?
I believe it's 10 to 2.
Okay. And then she also references that the dance is coming this Saturday, the snow coming dance. And again, she apologized, so I just thought I'd relay that to everybody. So we move now on to, George's favorite part of the meeting, the transact other legal business, but there's a couple other things we have to talk about before we get to George's comments. Okay, George, is that okay?
That's fine. I just wanted to follow up on the snow dance. I'm hoping that that happens and that kids have a ball.
So first, it kind of ties in with our agenda building, as our next meeting is scheduled for the Wednesday of February break.
Correct.
So traditionally, I think we have canceled that meeting and put a very small business meeting in front of our annual meeting to handle any payroll and pay orders that needed to be addressed or any other emergent board business. So I don't know if that works for everybody. And if so, what time? We're at 7 o'clock for our annual meeting, right?
That is correct, yeah.
So. And we
Until
have-
6, is that right?
Till 6, so perhaps a 6:30 board meeting if we needed it for, which I'm sure we will, right?
Just for pay orders.
Pay
and
orders,
everything,
so
yeah.
so 6:30 if that works for everybody. The other issue therefore is we're not having that guidance department professional development that was scheduled therefore. And part of the reason Dave and I discussed canceling the meeting is because since it's break, it's difficult to get a lot of those people who already have plans to be here to talk to us. So we were trying to figure out if there was another date prior to the annual meeting or prior to the annual meeting or prior to definitely town meeting day that might work for folks if that's something we wanted to do.
Actually, the week of the annual meeting, there are no other board events scheduled other than on that Thursday that we have the annual meeting. So other nights are free that week. Nothing to piggyback
No,
against.
because we have negotiations, so we can't do it before that either. No, but I don't know that people would be able to make it if we did it then either. So I don't know. I think that might be helpful, but if we can't make it happen, then I just don't know.
Why don't you just put out an email to see if, pick a day or something and say yes or no and go
Why
from
don't
there.
you see what availability, yeah, okay. Okay, all right.
I will
so-
send the board members an email, just throwing out a date and seeing who's available.
Yeah, I think that would be.
Okay, and
good way of
everyone
doing
is
it.
good with canceling then that February break
Yes.
meeting?
I'm sorry, I didn't.
But
Well, the
that would
goal
be
was to have
after
it before the
vote.
district annual meeting.
Yeah, I mean, we could definitely, I think we'd still all like to hear from the guidance folk, but I mean, it was intentionally trying to be scheduled before.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
So if we can't coordinate that, then we'll work on afterwards.
Got
But
it.
if that works for everybody, and then you had something
I
you
had a
wanted to
topic
share.
as well, yeah. So I would like to, essentially, my goal is to plant an idea with you, and I would like to request that we put this as an agenda item for that next meeting we'll have in March, whatever that would be, March, the first one after the vote. Thank you. Quick background on what this is about. We've engaged in our pre-K expansion, as you're well aware. It's been wildly successful. Our classrooms are full. We definitely tapped an unmet need in our community, and that's fantastic. This board, as you know, has been noticed and lauded throughout the state for being progressive in that arena. And sometimes when you do things that are progressive, there are unintended consequences. I had a parent from one of our elementary schools point one of those out to me. And that is because many of our children now are accessing childcare through our pre-K environment. They're not accessing childcare in private or other public providers out in the community. And so some of our families are running into some glitches when they are thinking ahead about summer childcare. because those places don't want to take students on a short window. They're looking for a commitment, which I think anybody who's running a business would be looking for. So this parent approached me via email and just asked the question like, hey, Dave, have you ever thought of something in the district? And if you had, what would that look like? My response wouldn't shock you. No, we haven't thought of that, but let me look into it and I'll get back to you. And that's kind of just how we left that. I immediately connected with Coral, who manages, our Act 166 pre-K stuff, knows a lot about the regs, knows a lot about the special ed side of any type of that work. And we just started talking about the what if. What if we tried to figure something out like this? Could we do that? What might that look like? What type of parameters would we be operating under, et cetera? The early returns that we found were there could be some pathways where we could figure something like that out. And those were optimistic and exciting. The negative side to that whole piece is it would obviously be a limited availability program. To do something like that, you'd only have so many seats because seats are based on, staffing and space and all the different things that go into a summer. So we could find ourselves trying to help meet a community need, but potentially not being able to meet all of the needs that exist in the community. So we're ready to continue thinking about what that could be if it were to be anything, but I didn't want to go any further with the thinking until we had a chance to have some conversation at the board level publicly about the concept and whether we wanted to pursue that and try to figure out more answers to see if there's an option there. So my request to you would be, could you just think about that concept? If something comes to your mind like that's amazing, that's the worst idea ever, or anything in between, feel free to just let me know in the interim, but I'd like to put it on the board agenda for next time we're together and just have some conversation, see where that leads us.
What's the matter, Lynn? You look scowly right there.
He's not playing.
Len might want to work in that program is what I'm thinking. And right now there would be far fewer answers than questions. I need you to know this is not a fully baked idea at all. It's just a preliminary thing we're trying to noodle around with a little bit.
Can we also think about approaching one of the child care centers or more than one in Rutland and seeing whether we could arrange something for our parents? Because I could see how, it would be great if we could do it, but you wouldn't be able to do it in every school necessarily.
Of course. Probably one setting would be all we'd be able to.
Right, and then you interfere sort of with some of the summer work that goes on, because you wouldn't be able to have it like the
Absolutely.
You have to provide childcare for the whole summer. But maybe one of the centers in Rutland might be amenable to saving slots for us, or
Certainly something.
or at least being aware of the need, so that they could think about it too. Don't let it just be our problem.
Yeah, fair enough.
As a parent of 2 small children, there's typically a 6 to 18-month waiting list currently to get your child into daycare. It's a huge barrier with availability. So
But we're only talking about the 3 and 4-year-olds, right?
Right, we'd be talking 3 and 4-year-olds for that summer window only, which I think is the challenge folks face because places are looking for a commitment, right? They're not looking for a drop in, drop out.
Dave had broached the subject with me, and I think it would be an interesting discussion for us to have. And if our feeling was, if we put it on as an agenda item, that any community members that have an opinion one way or the other, or suggestions about possible, solutions to that, could certainly contact us, contact Dave, show up for the meeting, whatever they'd like to do, and that we can maybe together see if we can, if it's a problem that we can help solve.
I would, many years ago, struggled with that very problem for a period of 2 hours a day, which was very difficult. I finally got, what is it, VSA, is that the right name? Were willing to help us out. Yeah, that's what I was trying to say. And so I full speed ahead, is my view.
Okay. So I welcome any other input in the meantime, and then we'll have some more conversation, see where it takes us. Thank you.
Okay, all right, so.
I have one other
Sure.
business. We had our cheer competition here this past weekend.
Oh.
And we have another one in Swanton this coming weekend. But I thought I'd give some numbers that the combo middle school team with Rutland got 3rd place. Mill River Varsity got 1st place. And the junior teams, which is one of the few sports that has all 4 schools represented on them, has actually an A and B, a blue and a red team. So there's 2 teams
Wow.
at the youngest level. and they landed first in their division and then second in their division. So they weren't against each other, but.
Well, very, very nice. Maybe I'll give them a nice little round of applause, because that's quite a nice.
We ought to have them come in sometime and give us a little cheer, the young kids. That would be tremendous.
I know many of them.
Yes, yes.
Okay. George, did you have anything to add before we move on?
Absolutely, I do.
We would be disappointed if you did not.
Well, I wouldn't want to disappoint you. I have a brief little report from Stafford. I attended the regularly scheduled program meeting this morning, which I'm on, and have a few things of interest, I think, to report from that. First item is what they've done recently is recalculated their capacity, and they have the ability to deal with 277 students. They have been accepting applications for the next school year, and to date, they have 367 applicants. And now that's the applicant's first choice. Now, the second choice indicated on these applicants with 227, which is a pretty significant numbers in view of the fact of the overall population of our surrounding high schools, I think. So that's the first piece. Now, what happens next is they start reviewing the first choice applicants to see in terms of suitability for that student in the tech center. Now, the other thing that's happening is they're just starting, and Tyler may have heard something of it already, doing a needs assessment so that they can fill out the application for the current, what's called the Carl Perkins Grant, which is a federal grant to help support tech ed. So in that work, they will probably be contacting folks within our district for different pieces of information. So that's kind of a heads up if you haven't had one already. So there you go. I'm done.
Okay. Thank you, George. Anyone else? Hearing none. We have kind of accomplished our agenda building with regard to the next meeting. Then would be our annual meeting. We'll have a short business meeting at 6:30 to do pay orders and anything else that might arise in the meantime. And then on the 4th, we'll have our central office reports and the usual
Perfect.
things, and we'll discuss that summer programming concept. Anyone have anything else that needs to be added? Okay. We don't have any need for an executive session, is my understanding. So a motion to adjourn at 8:41.
So move.
Thank you.
Wow.
Thank you. Yeah, I was like, wait.